Where Every Bloke Knows Your Name is the 10th episode of the 5th season of Frasier. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And for multiple reasons, I really enjoy this. Primarily because I'm British, and I'll talk more about that as we go through the episode, and also because we have a couple of mentions of Cheers, which always makes me rather happy. So there are plenty of things in this episode to really thoroughly enjoy, at least for me. It starts off with two young children, actually, and we very quickly learn that they are young Frasier and young Niles. They're played by Andrew Dorsett and Michael Welch, and they're at school, and they're at their lunch table, and then we cut to grown-up Niles and Frasier at the table at Cafe Nervosa, which I rather liked. Niles has got Maris an antique saddle for her birthday, to which Frasier responds, "How does it look on you?" Honestly, harsh, but kind of true. And Frasier actually cancels his various dates that he has with Niles over the next few days. And we cut to the apartment. Martin has some guys over and Ross for a poker night. And initially, Frasier decides to join in because he has nothing else to do. And, well, he very quickly is not able to keep up with the conversation. So that's the end of that. And Daphne suggests that maybe he should come to the pub with her. She's meeting her friend Clare. Her friend Clare has been quite alone. Plus, she's an underwear model. Maybe Frasier would like to come along as well. And Frasier didn't need to be asked twice. We then spend a lot of the episode in the Fox and Whistle. It definitely feels like a British pub. It feels nothing like Cheers, which I think was a good decision. The same way with Mahoney's in the new series definitely doesn't feel like Cheers or the Fox and Whistle. They all have their own characteristics, which I think works really well. Unfortunately, it turns out that Clare is engaged. She got engaged 2 days ago, so Frasier's not actually being set up with anybody. We got back to the apartment briefly. They're talking about Roz and her baby, and they're so supportive, all of Martin's friends, and it's really lovely to see. And then the mood kind of drops as they realise that eventually your children will move out and you'll be left alone and miserable. So the mood shifted pretty quickly there, but it was lovely to see these guys all supporting Roz and saying these lovely things. It was really nice. We're then back at the Fox and Whistle, and we're in the bathroom, and Claire asks Daphne what would happen if Frasier really took a liking to the pub, because she thinks it's bizarre, perhaps understandably, that Daphne brought her boss to the pub. And Daphne says she doesn't need to worry, this is not Frasier's kind of scene. Obviously not aware that Frasier spent the best part of a decade in a pub. And they come out of the bathroom and Frasier is singing, he's merry, he's in this big huddle, this big group of people. And he mentions coming back tomorrow. Maybe Claire had a point after all. And we then cut to a little while later, another day, and Martin's getting the house ready for Sherry to come over. Daphne's going out to the pub, and then Frasier comes in. And he learns that Daphne's going to the pub, and Daphne decides, actually, maybe she's not feeling too great and doesn't want to go after all. So she doesn't go. Niles then comes over. And it turns out that actually Frasier and Niles had tickets for a show that night. Frasier thought it was another night, and Niles has been let down again, unfortunately. And we have this brilliant performance from Martin, well, from John Mahoney. And this is because Frasier's out of the apartment now, and Daphne's complaining that Frasier is ruining her plans, he's spending too much time in her bar, and there's this moment where Martin tells her that he should try and take the hint that somebody is ruining their evening, and he opens a bottle of something, champagne I assume, at the same time, and just the pop and the expression on his face and the emotion in his voice, I guess kind of frustration in his voice, because obviously Daphne is ruining his evening because Sherry's coming over. It was beautifully done. And I really liked it. And he finally told Daphne, Sherry's coming over, but also, why don't you talk to Frasier? Because, fair enough, in Frasier's defence, if Daphne doesn't tell him he feels this way, bearing in mind she was the one who invited Frasier down to the bar in the first place, how could he possibly know how she feels? And she does. She goes down to the pub, and she tells him, and immediately he understands, which I thought was the right attitude to have. He understands because back in Boston, I had a bar like this one. And whenever we get a Cheers mention, it makes my heart sing, kind of also makes my heart ache, because I wish we were back there. And then somebody comes in, talks to Daphne, and the bartender happens to reveal that Daphne had only been coming to this pub for a month. And Frasier retracts his previous sentiments. He thinks that a month is only a few weeks longer than he's been going there, so she doesn't really have a claim on the bar any more than he does. I don't know if I agree with that. I guess I kind of do. A month is not a tremendously long amount of time. I don't know if anybody has any strong opinions on that. Please feel free to share. But they decide to play darts, and that's how they're going to decide who gets to come to the bar, or if Frasier is allowed to continue going. And it's beautifully played out. I think they did a really great job with this. Both Daphne and Frasier are good at darts, which makes the competition quite intense. And we have a lot of insults being thrown around. Frasier insults corned beef hash at one point, which I won't stand for because I love corned beef hash. And Frasier says, "I scored again." And Daphne responds, "That's not something we hear out of your mouth very often," which I love. And the insults were flying back and forth as quickly as the darts were flying. And then Frasier, I can't believe he did this. As a British person, I can't believe he did this. He referred to the Queen as a sandbag. And as soon as he did that, just all of the British people in the bar kind of came towards him. And he realised he'd maybe gone a step too far. And clearly, he's no longer welcome in that pub at all. I thought that was a pretty decent way to end things. We actually end with two scenes. First of all, we actually have the kids again, young Niles and Frasier, which was rather sweet because Frasier is actually apologising to Niles for cancelling all of their dates and then gives him a gift. We then cut to a very similar scene from when they were kids, which I thought was rather adorable. And then we actually end with a scene at the apartment again with Martin and the others. And it was a nice way to end things. It's definitely a good episode. As I said, there are two reasons in particular why I love this. First of all, it's just the relatability for the British aspect. Definitely made me very happy. And also the Cheers mentions, the few Cheers mentions in this, which are always going to make my heart sing. And as I said before, I really like the fact that the bar looks very different to the bar, well, to Cheers. Similar when we went to Duke's, that also looks very different as well. I think they made a real effort to make them all very different, which I rather liked. In general, this is a really solid episode. I love the title as well. If you're unaware, the title is a Cheers reference because Cheers is where everybody knows your name. And, of course, apparently the British version would be where every bloke knows your name. I don't know. I don't believe there's ever... Hang on, I'm going to check. From what I can see, nobody has ever created a British version of the Cheers intro. That's a parody to the theme song I'd actually quite like to hear. That could be really good fun. I have no musical abilities, so that's not coming from me. But certainly that would be entertaining. And Where Every Bloke Knows Your Name is also a really entertaining episode.